These are the top 10 college football coaches on the hot seat in 2025. Number 10 is Kalen Deboer at Alabama. And this is kind of the case of maybe the best jobs in the country might also be the worst jobs. Because at Alabama, while there might be the most set up team and set up infrastructure to actually win, following up Nick Saban is no easy task. And it's probably the only place in the country where you could go 9-3 in your first season, be in the fight for the college football playoff, and really would have been in the college football playoff if Clemson doesn't win the ACC championship game. And then you're on the hot seat the very next season. But that's the fact of the matter for Kalen Deboer, because it wasn't just that he was 9-3 and didn't make the playoff. It's the games that they lost, Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, in the way that they lost. Obviously, Oklahoma is generally a strong program, but they were 7-6, 6-6 last season, and they lost when they still had a chance to really, cement their spot in the playoffs. So I think that he doesn't have to necessarily win the national championship or make a deep run in the playoffs, but you definitely need to make the playoff this next season to kind of give yourself a couple more seasons. If he doesn't make the playoff, I don't think he's going to get fired necessarily unless there's a big collapse, but they're going to start to question whether he's the right guy to lead Alabama into the new and next era of college football. 9 is Lincoln Riley at USC. And just listen to these win totals from his time at Oklahoma and through his time at USC. So 2017, he goes 12-2 at Oklahoma. They lose in the college football playoff. 2018, 12-2, they lose in the college football playoff. 2019, they go 12-2 and lose in the college football playoff. 2020, they go 9-2. I don't think that they made the college football playoff. That's the COVID season. Then 2021, his last season in Oklahoma, they go 10-2, and he did not coach the bowl game that year. They ended up beating Oregon in whatever bowl game that was with Bob Stoops as the coach. Then 2022 at USC, his best season, 11-3. They lose in the Cotton Bowl. Caleb Williams wins the Heisman Trophy. 2023, they go 8-5, finish the season unranked, and win the Holiday Bowl. 2024, they go 7-6, finish the season unranked, and win the Las Vegas Bowl. Now, any coach that starts 11-3 and has the salary that Lincoln Riley does and the resume he does coming in has bought themselves a couple seasons. But going 8-5 and then 7-6, finishing unranked, and really not following up anything that you did in 2022, the first season at USC, with any kind of success, it's the rubber starts to wear a little thin there. USC has an opportunity, I think, realistically nowadays, to put themselves in the conversation with maybe Oregon and Penn State as those kind of second-tier programs in the Big Ten. I think both of those programs I would argue that are number one, but they're definitely a half step at least below Ohio State, Michigan. Right now, USC is more along the lines of an Iowa or maybe even Nebraska with the success that they've had. And Iowa has actually been more successful. USC was supposed to be a blue blood. They have been a blue blood, and Lincoln Riley was supposed to bring them back to that. I don't think that he has. I think there's a lot of talk about USC maybe getting into the college football playoff this year. I don't see that as realistic, and I don't think that Lincoln Riley needs to do that, but I think a 9-win season is the bare minimum here. If he doesn't get a 9-win season, really, what are we doing as USC if we stick around with him? Now, they have had a propensity to stick with a coach for too long, and that's kind of why they're at where they're at, but I think that they need to start making decisions with Lincoln Riley, because he's not the coaches they stuck with before where they're getting paid, middle of the road. He's getting paid top dollar and not performing at top dollar. So if it's not, looking like it's turning around this season, they really have to start looking elsewhere for the next, couple seasons. 8 is Mike Gundy, and there's a lot of talk around this, but I don't think I believe it. Mike Gundy has been at Oklahoma State for 21 seasons. He just had his worst season at 3-9. Now that's a pretty bad season, especially with some of the expectations they had coming in and it being a more wide open Big 12 without Oklahoma and Texas. But for 19 of those 21 seasons at Oklahoma State, mind you, not some blue blood, at Oklahoma State, he has made a bowl game. He has had 2 top 10 AP poll finishes at the end of the season. At Oklahoma State, they finished number 3 in the country in 2011. Now, 3-9 anywhere, that's not great. And Mike Gundy definitely gets paid a lot of money, especially for the position he has. But I don't see, if they get back to a bowl game, get a 7-8 win season, which is definitely possible, he's safe for another 10 years. And I know, these kind of programs are not firing dudes that have been there for 20 seasons, especially dudes that are not 90 years old. He's still, in the prime, maybe late prime of his coaching career. But if they go 3-9, 2-10, 4-8 again, then there starts to be those conversations really starting to heat up. Again, I think this one, all three of these, is less about being fired in 2025, more so that they'll be at the top of the list if they don't turn things around for 2025. They'll be at the top of the list in 2026. Okay, number 7 is one that I think might actually get fired in 2025 if things go really awry, and that's Brian Kelly at LSU. Now, Brian Kelly has actually had a good bit of success at LSU, just, relative to the rest of the country. 10-4 the first season, 10-3 the second season, and 9-4 last season. Definitely his worst season. But it's been that thing where they're not showing up when they need to show up. Last season, they definitely could have at least been in the SEC championship game, and they failed in some games that they should not have failed at. And they've lost the season opener in every single season that Brian Kelly's been at LSU. They actually have lost going back an additional 2 seasons before he even got there. So he's not showing up when they need to show up, and that is part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that he signed a 10-year, $95 million contract in 2021. That kind of contract, you need to be getting in the college football playoff, and there's no college football playoff appearances as of yet. Now, LSU is definitely a favorite, not only for the SEC, not only for a college football playoff spot, but some are arguing for a national championship in 2025, and that might actually come to pass. They had one of the best transfer portal classes. They have one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country, with Garrett Nussmeier coming back for his senior season. And they have a ton of playmakers and a great defense that LSU will always have, because LSU is a hotbed. Again, it's one of those places that if you have a pulse and you know how to coach at all, you should be able to win. Everybody has won there, yet Brian Kelly hasn't done it quite yet. This is the 4th season. This is when coaches traditionally really get their best work going. So maybe he will this season. But if there's no college football playoff appearance this season, they really start to have some questions. I think it's got to be worse than just not getting in the college football playoff for him to actually get fired this season, namely because he has a $50 million plus buyout for him to get fired anytime before next season. And that, even for a place like LSU, is extremely prohibitive. But they have boosters, they have a want and a need to win. So if it's like a 7-win or an 8-win season, you might be seeing Brian Kelly somewhere else in 2026. Number 6 is a case of when opportunity knocks, so does the opportunity to fail. And that's Joey McGuire at Texas Tech. Now, he's getting his 4th season at Texas Tech. This is the only head coaching job he's had in major college football. And they've gone 8-5 in 2022, 7-6 in 2023, and 8-5 in 2024. Not bad seasons for Texas Tech, right? Stability at Texas Tech is 7, 8, 9 win seasons. And he has been able to do that and got 2 bowl wins out of it so far. But Texas Tech spent like $30, $40 million in the transfer portal. They have the number 1 or number 2 transfer portal class, depending on where you're looking at. And they have made an investment in college football that they've never, ever made anything near before. Joey McGuire just happens to be there when a booster decided to put all that money in. But if he doesn't have any results this season that they're expecting, like a Big 12 championship, like a college football playoff berth, he might not survive it. And that doesn't necessarily mean that Joey McGuire is a bad coach or would be a bad coach if they didn't do that. But the expectations have changed from when he got hired to where they're at now. It's not an 8-5, 7-6 school in their mind anymore. It's a 9, 10 win conference champion, college football playoff participant school at the minimum. So I'm crossing my fingers that Joey McGuire does well, because I'm really interested in what Texas Tech does, and we're actually going to be focusing in on Texas Tech this season. So make sure you subscribe if you're interested in that. But if he doesn't succeed in the way that they're expecting him to, they might just look for another coach they can spend a bunch of money on, because they're expecting success in 2025 and beyond. Number 5 is Billy Napier at Florida, and he might have just escaped being fired last season from reports that we got. So He did have his best season at Florida at 8-5, but that's not cutting it at Florida. 6-7, 5-7 with no bowl game, 8-5 with a bowl game win. That's not cutting it at Florida. They're looking at national championships. This is a blue blood program that had some of the most success in the BCS era of anyone in the country, and they have not found it in the CFP era. It hasn't even really been close for any year in the CFP era. This year they come in with expectations, number 15 in the country in the preseason polls, and they have a quarterback that's being talked about for Heisman with DJ Lagway. If he can stay healthy, maybe that could happen, but we'll see if he can stay healthy, if he can stay upright with this offensive line. But Billy Napier just hasn't been able to do it. They have consistently one of the toughest schedules in the SEC. They have tough non-conference rivalries with Miami and Florida State. They seem to play every season. So they need to, it's not an easy job by any means, but it is one of the biggest jobs in the country, and you need to succeed when you get those jobs. The only thing that probably saved Napier last season was getting Lagway on the field and seeing the success from this big-time recruit he brought in to kind of save the program. This is his fourth season, like we talked about. This is when coaches really start to get it going, but it's also nut up or shut up time. If he doesn't give them 9, 10 wins this season, he really should start looking for another place to live, because I don't think he's going to be able to stay in Gainesville after the 2025 season. Number 4 is interesting because while Hugh Freeze does have a losing record in his 2 seasons at Auburn, when he started they only had 2 national championships, and now they have 8. So by some respects, he might be the most successful coach in the country that's still working. But in all honesty, Hugh Freeze just needs to get a winning season under his belt. There's not super high expectations at Auburn, but they can get to the highest of highs. Obviously, they've done that. We've seen them do that. But if he doesn't win 7, 8 games in 2025, I think he's going to be sent packing at the end of the season. Auburn knows that, they need to peak up every once in a while, and they haven't done it in a while. We haven't heard from Auburn really since 2015, 2014 is when they were last good. So or maybe it's 2012, but either way, they need to at least get on the track of winning, and 3 straight losing or 500 seasons is just not going to cut it. It's got to be 7, 8 wins at the minimum for Hugh Freeze to be working at Auburn in 2026. Number 3 is Luke Fickell, and it's kind of a similar story with Luke Fickell at Wisconsin as we have with Hugh Freeze in Auburn. Luke Fickell came from a lot of success at a G5 program, no longer G5, Cincinnati. They were the only G5 program to qualify for the 4-team college football playoff in 2021. They're the only team that did that the entire time. And then he came to Wisconsin, and you would expect some big success. And outside of the COVID season, which they only played 2 games, they've gone 7-6 in 2023 and 5-7 in 2024. So he's got a 500 record in 2+ seasons as the Wisconsin head coach. And that's not going to cut it. Wisconsin is not a blue blood, but they definitely were one of the more successful Big Ten programs through the 2010s, making it to the Rose Bowl a couple times and fighting for the college football playoff a couple times as well. With the 12-team college football playoff, you would expect Wisconsin to have some seasons that they would be, in the running. And I don't think anyone's talking about Wisconsin this upcoming season. They're still a tough place to play. It's Wisconsin. They have an identity, a football identity. I don't know that Luke Fickell is going to be able to, provide that. And I think that it's the same thing. You got to get a winning record. You've got to, turn the tide. You've got to show that there's some kind of promise going forward. If you can't do that, you might not make it through the season. If you get to week if you get to your 9th game and you already have 6 losses, you probably won't make it to the end of the season if you're Luke Fickell. So they just need to show a little bit of success, get some kind of, trademark win in the Big 10 this year, and maybe that's enough to get him some more seasons, because it is only going to be his 3rd full season upcoming here in 2025. But there's got to be something that shows they're going forward. Otherwise, there has to make a change, because you can't be down for too long in college football, especially for these kind of high mid-tier programs, because you can start to lose the status that you have, and then it's really, really hard to get that back. Number 2 is Brent Venables at Oklahoma, and this might be worse than you think it is. Oklahoma has been 6-7 in 2 of his 3 seasons at the helm, with his one other season being 10-3, where they lost in the Alamo Bowl. And 2 of those seasons were in the Big 12. It's not like they've just struggled in the SEC. Now, of course, they had a signature win last season, beating Alabama at home towards the end of the season. But Brent Venables has to do something and do something big. I don't even think that this is one of those same things as Luke Fickell or Hugh Freeze where they just need to kind of get it going. Brent Venables, there's high expectations. There's a lot of changes. They bring in John Napier, bring in a new offensive coordinator. They have, blue chip recruits. It's Oklahoma, and they're not winning games. They need 9-10 wins. They need to be pushing for a college football playoff berth. They need to be getting wins within the SEC. They need to beat Michigan when they come. All of these things need to come together for Brent Venables to be the coach in 2026. If you're an Oklahoma fan, I know that I made a video about Brent Venables a while ago, and people were really, Oklahoma fans were on me like, he hasn't had a chance to succeed. Why? Why hasn't he had a chance to succeed? Maybe he's just a good defensive coordinator and he's not a good head coach. That's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are really good at one side of the ball and they just cannot run a program. Maybe that's what's happening with Brent Venables. We'll see this season. I think that they have the ability to have a highly successful season, but I think that they also need to have a highly successful season unless they want a new coach in 2026. Number 1 should be somewhat obvious. It's Mike Norvell at Florida State. Now, Mike Norvell had a lot of success in the first couple years at Florida State. He starts when they're really far down at 3-6 when he comes in the COVID season. Then they go 5-7, and then they go from 5-7 to 10-3. Finish at number 11 in the AP poll. And then 2023, they should have been in the college football playoff. Undefeated regular season. You could ignore the bowl game against Georgia because that was a whole thing. They lost their quarterback and they lost basically all their team because they're like, why the fuck are we playing a bowl game when we should be in the college football playoff? They go 13-1 that season. They probably should have at least had a chance in the college football playoff regardless of losing their quarterback. But then last season, they go 2-10. I mean, I don't have the stats for this, but I can't imagine there's any other team in the history of college football that went from 13-1 to 2-10. Just absolutely terrible. And if they don't turn it around, this one, I think that you can get away with a 7-8 win season with some big wins, with some, if they upset Alabama or whatever. But there's no expectations on Florida State this season. And if you're a coach that was in a national championship or in a national championship contention, in the college football playoff contention with a true blue blood that is Florida State, and then you go and are wiped off the face of the planet. They started at number 10 in the country. I don't even know that many teams that started in the top 10 in a preseason poll that end up 2-10, let alone that they were in there because of their success from the previous season and not just expectations bloated because they got in some big recruit or whatever. That is such a crazy, it's almost curse level. So if he doesn't turn it around and show some promise this season, if they don't make a bowl game, he's got to be out of there. I think it's got to be in the middle of the season because it might not even be his fault. There might be some juju over this program that's made that happen, but you gotta change things around then. You can't let it slip away because Florida State, they made the mistake of hiring Willie Taggart. Hey, Ducks, we've been there. We hired Willie Taggart. We know what he can do to your program. And then they had to turn it around from there. But I think Mike Norvell probably is a good coach. I don't think that you get to the college football playoff, or at least in that conversation where you should have been in the college football playoff and, following up a 10-win season before that without being a good coach. But 2-10 is damning. 2-10 at Florida State is damning. So hopefully he could turn it around, but we'll see. Thanks for watching that video. Make sure that you like and subscribe. And if you made it this far, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Is there anybody that I don't have on the list that you think should be on the list for next season? And is there anybody that's too high or too low for your liking? If you want to watch more of my videos, I do have those for you. I started on my season preview series with the Oregon Ducks right here, so you can go ahead and click on that one. Let me know what you think of that one. Up here, I've got my most popular video, which is a realistic conference realignment for 2030. Other than that, I've got my subscribe link on this side, and we will check you next time. See ya!